The elephant cries and begs the man for help. And then incredible things happen. The endless expanse of the savannah lay still under the early morning sun as Mason, a dedicated veterinarian and wildlife ranger, began his daily patrol. Dust danced in the warm air and nature seemed at peace, but suddenly his gaze froze on a gigantic silhouette, a lone elephant standing in the middle of the plain, motionless like a statue. No ear flick, no tail swish, no step. Mason instinctively sensed something was wrong. There was something about the scene that felt unnatural, disturbingly still. He parked at a safe distance, watched the elephant through his binoculars, trying to interpret even the smallest sign. But even after hours, nothing changed. No breeze, no sound, nothing could prompt the animal to move. Other elephants sometimes stopped, waiting for lagging herd members, but this one was completely alone. Mason didn't want to leave. He couldn't. Something deep inside him, a quiet call, held him in place. It felt as if the elephant was waiting for something or for someone. As the sun passed its zenith and the heat pressed against the windshield, Mason decided to drive in, slowly, carefully. Every movement was measured, calm, deliberate. He didn't want to scare the animal. When he finally stepped out of the car, the elephant moved. Not with anger, not with panic, but with a gaze that pierced Mason to his core, a look full of pain. And in that moment, Mason knew this was no coincidence. The animal needed help, and it had been waiting for him. Holding his breath and with trembling hands, Mason approached the massive animal. Every step was slow, cautious, filled with respect. The elephant still stood motionless, as if it had lost all strength. But as Mason got closer, the animal turned its head slightly and looked directly at him. No anger, no fear, only a deep, quiet pain that shimmered in its eyes. And then Mason saw it. Tears, real tears, leaving dark streaks below the elephant's large, dull eyes. This was no coincidence. This elephant was crying. The moment felt almost surreal. Mason knelt down a few meters in front of the animal, speaking softly, soothingly. Not because the elephant could understand his words, but because animals feel. They sense tone, absorb energy. It was a wordless conversation, a dialogue between two living beings connected by empathy. Mason saw the great shoulders of the elephant lower slightly, as if the weight it carried was momentarily released. The pain was still there, but so was the trust. The elephant had chosen him as a helper, as a hope. Mason didn't hesitate any longer. He grabbed his radio and called the medical team. His voice was calm but firm, his eyes never leaving the elephant. "He needs us," he said, "and he trusts me." As the minutes passed and the sun slowly began to sink, Mason stayed with him, kept speaking, kept soothing, kept being there. And then something happened he would never forget. The elephant slowly went down on its knees. It wasn't a gesture of weakness, but a quiet, powerful sign of surrender, a giant soul saying, "Help me." As the rumble of engines echoed in the distance and two vehicles rolled across the savannah, Mason felt a wave of relief, but also tension. The team had arrived, but they were dealing with an elephant, not just enormous, but injured and unpredictable. The rescuers stepped out with practiced precision, yet even they froze for a moment when they saw the animal. The sight was heartbreaking. A mighty elephant, tear-streaked, kneeling with a severely swollen abscess on its back, likely causing unbearable pain. The team knew there was no time to lose. A tranquilizer was prepared, but every move had to be perfect. If the elephant reacted too early, it could be dangerous. As the needle was inserted, Mason held his breath. The giant flinched briefly, but then remained still. Minutes later, the elephant began to breathe heavily. Dazed, the veterinarians worked swiftly and with precision, opening the infected site, cleaning the abscess, and applying emergency care. But suddenly, the elephant moved. Panic swept through the team. They pulled back, took cover behind the vehicles. Mason stood still, eyes fixed on the elephant, his heart pounding. Had it been too soon? Was the procedure too much? Then what they had all hoped for happened. The elephant lowered its head slightly, took a deep breath, and slowly began to wag its tail. It was a quiet gesture, almost unnoticeable. But for the team, it meant everything. A sign of life. A sign they hadn't come too late. But none of them knew that the most emotional chapter was still to come. The treatment was complete. The elephant had survived. The medical team quietly packed up their equipment, while Mason still stood motionless beside his vehicle, his eyes fixed on the majestic creature. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a golden glow across the savannah. Everything seemed to calm, until the elephant suddenly began to move. Slowly, with dignity, it rose and took heavy steps toward the vehicles. For a moment, everyone held their breath. Would the animal panic or charge? But the elephant walked past them all, straight to Mason. There was no aggression, just a calm, deliberate stride. When it reached Mason's window, the elephant raised its massive trunk, stretched it out, and touched Mason gently. It rested its trunk there for a moment, like an embrace, like a thank you. No sound, no roar. Just this one simple gesture, so powerful, so full of meaning that even the most seasoned rescuers stood with tears in their eyes. Then, the elephant turned away and slowly disappeared into the vastness of the savannah. No one said a word, but Mason knew this moment would stay with him forever. The look, the tears, the silent plea for help, and that unforgettable, heartfelt gesture. It was not a goodbye. It was a reminder that even the largest, strongest beings can be vulnerable, and that a single human can make all the difference. The story of this elephant is more than a rescue. It's a quiet message to all of us. It shows that true greatness is not found in strength, but in the ability to ask for help. And that true humanity begins when we listen, even if the call comes without words. Mason didn't follow a plan. He followed his heart, his instinct. And that's what saved a feeling being's life. Because sometimes no words are needed to understand that someone is suffering. Only compassion, patience, and the courage to stay. The elephant never forgot who helped him, and his gentle touch was more than a thank you. It was silent proof that trust builds bridges between worlds that might never otherwise meet. If this story touched your heart, give the video a like, and share it with someone who believes in the silent language of animals. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss any more moving stories. Tell us in the comments, do you believe animals can show gratitude? Because sometimes a single look says more than 1,000 words, and a quiet trunk more than any grand gesture.